So we'll do a little sandwich. I'll start. I'm going to begin on the offensive line. I think there is a lot of buyer beware opportunities on the offensive line in free agency, and one of them is Dallas Cowboys tackle Tyron Smith. And Tyron Smith is a damn good left tackle. He is a physical freak. He looks like a damn beast. He's got like abs, but he's also humongous. He's like 330 pounds with abs, which is stupid. But here's the problem with Tyron Smith is he hasn't dropped off from his ability at age 33, but he's just not reliable when it comes to his health. The last 4 years, Tyron Smith has played 2 games, 11 games, 4 games, 13 games last year. But Sam, there's a pattern here where if Tyron Smith goes 2-11, 4-13, then he's probably going to play 6. And then he'll play 15 the next year. So based off of that pattern. So I think I am avoiding Tyron Smith. He's not going to break the bank. As you see, this is our contract projection from Josh Keepo at A2ZSports.com. Just 2 years, $25 million with a low year one cap hit. But his body's failing him when it comes to staying healthy. So I'm staying away from Tyron Smith. Jody says he's played 3 full seasons in 13 years. Yeah, but before 2020, he was playing 16, 15, or 13 games. At least it was like a low bar of 13. And he played 13 games this past year. But again, I mentioned the pattern, 2-11, 4-13, which means he's due for 6 this upcoming season. So I would not go get Tyron Smith, even if he's a affordable option at left tackle who would come in and be pretty solid if he could stay healthy, but I don't trust him.
No, yeah. I mean, I think especially when you look at the recent pattern, even the high end is like 13 games, right? That's the most games he's played in a year in the last 4 years. Yeah. 13 games means he's missing 4 games. Like that's a month of football that guy is going to be out for. That's at least one IR stint. And so when you talk about the need that the Titans have at left tackle, really just the entire offensive line in general, and you start looking at potential solutions, you probably want to strive for something more reliable and more readily available. Obviously, injuries are going to happen. So guys are going to miss a game here or a game there. But when you're looking at a recent history that shows he's more than likely going to miss 4+ games during the season, I think this is absolutely fair to say to avoid Tyron Smith here. And like you said, he's a really good player, really talented player. I will not complain if the Titans sign him because this is a need and he's super talented. And hopefully the signing would be low risk for Tennessee where they could get out of a contract if there was an injury problem here. But I think there are other options at offensive line that are better for what they need right now. And so I would lean to being on your side here. Avoid this one.
Anthony says he's cheap and on a per game basis would be less money than most left tackles, even if he got hurt. Yeah, but I am tired of the Titans going to the bargain bin for elderly. That's mean. Older, injured.
Yeah, that was mean.
Yeah, elderly is too strong.
You might be older than Tyron Smith.
Me?
Yeah, I don't know how old he is, but you might be.
I am older by 8 months.
Yeah, so there you go. Elderly. There you go.
Well, from a football context, come on. Like I think your 30s is the best decade of your life to that point. I don't know how it gets in their 40s or 50s, but yeah, as from a football standpoint, older, north of 30, who has injury issues, I'm staying away from Tyron Smith.
Sure, fair enough. And especially if you're looking at, injured veteran player, potential like stud in the draft. You start weighing the younger, more reliable option easy. Austin, my one might be a little bit controversial out there because
I'm ready for this one.
You have a player who is injury prone. Yes. I have a player who I believe could be injury prone in the future.
Predicting injuries, right?
I am. And I'm going to say
with good background.
I'm going to say the Titans should not completely avoid necessarily signing him, but be aware about how big of a contract you give to L'Jarius Sneed. for me. A to Z
Oh.
Sports projects L'Jarius Sneed at 4 years, $64 million with $35 million guaranteed, fully guaranteed in the contract. A guy who played 16 games last year, had 2 interceptions, 78 tackles. I saw some people in the chat a little concerned because they said he'd only had 1 good year. He's been rather consistent actually over the last 2 or 3 seasons in Kansas City, and he does make plays. I will give that to him. But Austin, I'm going to read the following from our Charles Goldman, who gave me a little bit of background about L'Jarius Sneed's nagging knee injury and how it could be a factor in the future. So this is Charles Goldman, who writes about the Kansas City Chiefs for A to Z Sports. Here's what he had to say about Sneed. Sneed suffered a knee injury during the postseason run in 2022 ahead of the AFC Championship game. It caused him to be limited in Super Bowl leading up to that game, but it didn't seem to impact him much more. Upon returning in the 2023 NFL offseason, Sneed still dealt with knee swelling. He missed a dozen days of training camp in all 3 preseason games while nursing that lingering injury. The team remained steadfast in their belief that Sneed would be ready to play by week 1, and he was. He was also listed on the injury report with that said knee injury until week 8, with several limited and full participation days in practice, but no actual missed games. He reappeared on the injury report again after the bye week in week 10 with that same knee injury. The second stay on the injury report lasted through week 16, at which point Sneed suffered a calf injury and was listed as questionable for the week 17 game. He sat out during the team's week 18 tilt with the Chargers as they were locked into their seating. The calf injury didn't impact him during the playoffs, but he was listed on the report throughout all of the postseason. The knee injury didn't appear to limit him in any way during the regular season, as evidenced by his strong performance, but it's certainly something that teams are going to want to check out. There's a variety of issues that can cause swelling, but if it's a long-term issue, it could impact how much teams are willing to offer in free agency. All of that said, the Chiefs did a good job of managing the injury this year, so it's reasonable to think other teams could do the same. Without the proper background on the injury, signing him could prove to be a gamble. That is from Charles Goldman, who I had conversations with about Sneed. Again, there's a lot to like here. There's a lot of good performance. The knee injury obviously wasn't a huge factor last year, where he didn't miss a game until week 18 when they just sat him for rest reasons. But a guy who spent basically the entire season besides 2 weeks on the injury report with a knee/calf, that might be something I try to avoid if I'm the Titans looking to find a long-term solution at cornerback. There's some red flags here for me. Thoughts on
and
all
Eric Davis says, I get it, buyer beware, but he didn't miss any games and he's good. He's good. And he missed the last game of the season because it didn't matter. They sent a lot of players down for that. But I think the key here is, you mentioned it, long-term fix, long-term answer at cornerback. And do you want to do that with somebody who might have consistent knee injuries with, at the position that they play? Like, corner is really tough on knees. And so
Adam says smoke screen so no one comes around and steals them. This is not something the Kansas City Chiefs have put out there. This is just one of our writers observing the injury report. And I don't think the Chiefs are necessarily listing L'Jarius Sneed on their injury report with a knee injury in preparation for the ensuing offseason so that nobody would come up and snatch him.
I was in a meeting with Charles yesterday where he said the Chiefs would probably not bring back L'Jarius Sneed because they have to prioritize Chris Jones. And that's Charles going through that analysis, who knows as much about the Chiefs as we know about the Titans. And so I think it is something to be curious about.
And the new training staff is the big X factor here. It's the big variable because, you don't have your head strength coach anymore. So how the Titans monitor and manage injuries under this new regime is TBD. It just is an interesting, again, I'm not all the way out. He is such a good player at a position of need. I look more at like Chidobe Awuzie as like hey, this is a more reliable fix that doesn't necessarily cause you to break the bank. I don't know if you need to be paying top dollar on a corner anyway, when you have so many holes that you might be better to spread the wealth a little bit. But then for it to be a top corner that has knee issues or knee concerns, that's a lot of red flags where I probably avoid L'Jarius Sneed.